stood outside the small restaurant with my heart racing. My hand stayed inside my pocket, touching the simple silver ring I had saved for over a year to buy. It wasn't expensive, but every extra shift, every skipped meal, and every sacrifice had gone into it. I smiled because I believed tonight would become the happiest memory of my life. Olivia looked at me and smiled. "Why are you so nervous?" I laughed softly. "Because tonight is important." She crossed her arms. "Important how?" I took a deep breath, pulled out the ring box, and slowly knelt in front of her. "Olivia, we've been together for 5 years. We've dreamed about our future together. I don't have a mansion or a sports car, but I promise I'll spend my life making you happy. Will you marry me?" People around us stopped to watch. For 1 second, I expected tears of happiness. Instead, Olivia stared at the ring, then burst into loud laughter. She laughed so hard that everyone turned toward us. "Oh my God," she said between laughs. "Ethan, is this a joke?" My smile slowly disappeared. "What do you mean?" She grabbed the ring box and held it up. "This tiny thing? You seriously expect me to wear this?" The crowd began whispering. My face burned with embarrassment. "I bought the best ring I could afford," I said quietly. "The best you could afford?" she repeated with a cold smile. "Exactly. That's the problem." My chest tightened. "Olivia," she shook her head. "Love doesn't pay bills anymore, Ethan. Dreams don't buy luxury homes. I waited long enough for you to become successful. I've been working every day for us." "For us?" she said. "No, you've been surviving, not living." Before I could answer, a black luxury car stopped beside the restaurant. A tall man stepped out wearing an expensive suit and an expensive watch. Olivia smiled immediately. He walked over, wrapped an arm around her waist, and kissed her forehead. I stared at them. "What is this?" Olivia looked directly into my eyes. "This is Damian Reed." Damian smiled politely and held out his hand. "You must be Ethan." I ignored his hand. Olivia sighed. "I've been seeing Damian for months." My heart stopped. "For months?" "Yes." "You cheated on me?" "I found someone who can give me the life I deserve." Couldn't even breathe. "So everything we planned," she interrupted me, "was just a dream, Ethan." Damian looked at me calmly. "I don't want any trouble." I laughed bitterly. "You already took everything from me." Olivia slipped her hand into Damian's. "I hope one day you'll understand." I looked at her with tears filling my eyes. "No, I never will." She turned around without another word. Together, they walked toward the luxury car. Not once did she look back. I stood there holding the ring that no longer meant anything. A hand rested on my shoulder. I turned and saw Lucas. "Come on, brother," he said softly. "Let's get out of here." "I wasn't enough." Lucas shook his head. "Don't say that. I gave her everything I had. You gave your heart. She wanted your wallet." His words hurt because they were true. When we reached my car, my sister Grace called. Lucas answered and handed me the phone. "Ethan?" Grace asked. "I'm here. I heard what happened. I failed." "No," she said firmly. "She failed. Never confuse rejection with failure." I stayed silent. Grace continued. "One day she'll measure your worth by your success. Make sure that day comes too late." I closed my eyes. I don't know where to start. Start by standing up. Then keep walking. The call ended. I looked at the ring one last time before closing the box. "I'll never beg anyone to stay again," I whispered. For the first time in years, I stopped chasing someone else's dream. From that night forward, I would build my own. For months, I refused to let myself think about Olivia. Every morning I woke before sunrise, opened my old laptop, and worked until my eyes burned. Pain stayed with me, but I turned it into fuel instead of letting it destroy me. One evening, Lucas walked into my apartment carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You've barely slept," he said. "I'm fine." "No, you're surviving." I sighed. "What's the difference?" "Surviving keeps you alive. Building your future gives you a reason to live. I smiled weakly. You remember that software idea we planned in college? He asked. The project everyone said would fail? Exactly. I looked at him. You still believe in it? I believe in you. I laughed for the first time in weeks. You must be crazy. Maybe, Lucas replied, but I'm not wrong. The next morning we started working together. Our first presentation ended with rejection. This product isn't ready, one investor said. Another shook his head. Nobody will buy this. As we left the meeting, I kicked a small stone across the sidewalk. I told you. Lucas folded his arms. What did I tell you after Olivia left? I looked at him. Failure is a lesson. So what did we learn today? I thought for a moment. Our presentation was weak. And our design needs improvement. And I need to stop taking rejection personally. Lucas grinned. Now you're thinking like a founder. For the next several months, every failure became another lesson. We rewrote our software again and again. We fixed bugs. We listened to criticism. We kept moving. One afternoon, we attended a technology conference. I wasn't expecting anything special. I simply wanted to learn. After my presentation, a woman approached me. You built this yourself? I nodded. Mostly with Lucas. She smiled. I'm Victoria Hayes. I immediately recognized her name. She was one of the most respected CEOs in the industry. It's an honor to meet you. I liked your determination, she said. My product still has problems. It does. I blinked. She laughed softly. I won't lie to you. I appreciate that. She crossed her arms. You have talent, Ethan. But talent without discipline doesn't last. What should I do? Keep improving. I was hoping for better advice. She smiled again. I just gave you the best advice. I hesitated. Would you invest in US? No. My heart dropped. You won't. Not yet. I frowned. Why? Because if I rescue you now, you'll depend on me instead of yourself. Her words surprised me. I don't understand. You don't need shortcuts. You need experience. She handed me her business card. When you've earned your success, call me. Then she walked away. Lucas looked at me. That went better than I expected. She rejected us. No. What do you mean? She respected you enough to tell you the truth. That night, while checking my phone, I saw another picture Olivia had posted. She stood beside Damien in front of a luxury yacht. The caption read, "Living the dream." My chest tightened. Lucas noticed my expression. Her again. I nodded. Delete the app. I can't. Why? Because part of me still wonders if she regrets leaving. Lucas shook his head. Stop waiting for someone who already made her choice. I stared at the screen one last time. Then I locked my phone. I won't reply. Good. I won't argue. Better. I'll let my future answer for me. Lucas smiled proudly. Now you're finally becoming the man I always knew. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, people began noticing our company. A small client became 2. 2 became 5. Our inbox filled with meeting requests instead of rejection emails. The business was still small. The office was still modest. My bank account was far from impressive. But every dollar we earned came from our own effort. For the first time since the night Olivia left me, I looked in the mirror and didn't see a broken man. I saw someone rebuilding himself one decision at a time. And this time, I wasn't doing it to prove anything to Olivia. I was doing it for me. 2 years changed everything. I stood inside my company's new headquarters and looked through the glass windows at the city below. Sometimes I still remembered the night Olivia laughed at my engagement ring. The memory no longer broke me. It reminded me how far I had come. Lucas walked into my office carrying a folder. You're smiling. I was thinking. About the past? For a second. He placed the folder on my desk. Forget the past. Look at these numbers. I opened the report. We doubled our profits? He grinned. And that's only this quarter. I leaned back in my chair. I never imagined this. You earned it. A few minutes later, my phone rang. "Hello," a familiar voice answered. "This is Victoria Hayes." I smiled. "It's good to hear from you. I've been watching your progress. I hope that's a good thing." "It is." She laughed softly. "I'd like you to meet someone." "Who?" "My father, Nathan Hayes." "Yes." I almost dropped the phone. "He's interested in investing." I thought he never invested in small companies. "He doesn't." "So why me?" "Because you aren't a small company anymore." The meeting took place the following afternoon. Nathan Hayes studied me silently. "So you're Ethan?" "Yes, sir. My daughter speaks highly of you." "I'm grateful." He folded his hands. "Tell me why I should trust you." I took a deep breath. "You shouldn't." He raised an eyebrow. "No. You should trust the results we've already delivered." Silence filled the room. Nathan smiled. "Interesting answer." For nearly 2 hours he questioned every decision I had ever made. I answered each one honestly. Finally he stood. "I respect people who earn success instead of demanding it." "So, I'd like to invest." I shook his hand. "Thank you." "No," he replied. "Thank yourself." A week later, Victoria invited me to a charity gala. "You should come." "I'm not good at fancy parties." "You'll survive." Lucas laughed. "Go." That evening I walked into the ballroom wearing my first custom-made suit. Everything looked unfamiliar. Crystal lights, luxury dresses, famous business leaders. As I accepted a glass of water, I heard a voice I never expected again. "Ethan?" I turned around. Olivia stood only a few feet away. For several seconds she simply stared. "You?" I smiled politely. "Hello, Olivia." She looked shocked. "You've changed." "I suppose everyone does." She stepped closer. "I almost didn't recognize you. It's been 2 years." She smiled nervously. "You look successful." "I've been busy." Before she could continue, Damien joined her. He looked at me with a confident smile. "Ethan." "Damien." He adjusted his expensive watch. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited." He laughed. "This event is mostly for serious business people." "I know." "So who invited you?" "Victoria Hayes." His smile faded slightly. "I see." Olivia looked between us. "We should catch up sometime." I looked into her eyes. "Why?" She hesitated. "I just think we've both changed." "We have." "I'd like to be friends." "I don't think that's necessary." Her smile disappeared. "I was only trying to be nice." "I appreciate it." Damien wrapped an arm around her. "We should go." As they walked away, I noticed Damien looking back at me more than once. A woman approached carrying a folder. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes. I'm Sarah Collins." We shook hands. "I've heard great things about your company." "Thank you." She lowered her voice. "I should probably keep this to myself." "What is it?" "Be careful around Damien Reed." I frowned. "Why?" "His image is stronger than his finances." "What do you mean?" "He owes more money than most people realize." I stayed silent. Sarah continued. "People believe he's untouchable." "And he isn't?" She smiled. "Not even close." "Why tell me?" "Because I know how this industry works." I nodded. "I appreciate the warning." She walked away before I could ask another question. Lucas joined me a few minutes later. "You look thoughtful." "I just learned something interesting." "About Damien?" "Yes." "What happened?" "I think his empire has cracks." Lucas smiled. "Then time is finally balancing the scales." I looked across the ballroom. Olivia laughed at something Damien said, but her eyes kept drifting toward me. For the first time, I wasn't the man chasing her attention. She was searching for mine. I quietly placed my glass on a table and walked toward the exit. I didn't need revenge anymore. Life was already writing its own answer. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I smiled to myself. Sometimes fate waits patiently. Then it brings everyone back together exactly when the truth is ready to be revealed. Nathan called me early Monday morning. "Ethan, are you free today?" I can be. I have something important. I'll be there in an hour. When I arrived at his office, he stood beside a wall-sized screen filled with charts and company names. Take a seat, he said. I looked at the presentation. This is bigger than anything we've handled before. Nathan nodded. It is. Victoria walked in carrying several folders. Morning. Morning. Nathan folded his hands. We're acquiring several technology firms. I stared at him. You're serious? Completely. Why involve my company? Because you've earned your place. I opened the first folder. This deal could change the entire market. Nathan smiled. Exactly. Victoria pointed at another document. Every company here wants this contract. I scanned the list. One name immediately caught my attention. Reed Technologies. I looked up. Damien. Nathan noticed my expression. You know him? I know enough. Victoria quietly added. His company has become very aggressive. Nathan leaned forward. Your job isn't personal. It won't be. It's business. I understand. Over the next several weeks, meetings filled every day. Lawyers argued. Executives negotiated. Investors asked endless questions. Every detail mattered. One afternoon, Lucas entered my office carrying another stack of reports. I've finished reviewing these. I accepted them. Anything unusual? He hesitated. Maybe. I opened the financial statements. Several numbers didn't match. That's strange. Lucas nodded. I checked twice. So did I. We spent hours comparing documents. The deeper we looked, the more inconsistencies appeared. Expenses disappeared. Revenue suddenly increased without explanation. Investment records looked altered. This can't be an accident, I whispered. Lucas crossed his arms. What do we do? I closed the folder. Nothing. He frowned. Nothing? Not yet. You want to ignore fraud? I want proof. The next morning, another negotiation meeting began. Damien entered confidently. He smiled at everyone. Gentlemen. I nodded politely. He barely acknowledged me before taking his seat. Michael Turner walked beside him carrying expensive leather files. Nathan introduced everyone. We're here to discuss the acquisition. Michael immediately began speaking. Our company is financially stronger than ever. I quietly listened. Every number sounded impressive. Too impressive. When he handed me the reports, I slowly turned each page. There it was again. The same hidden inconsistencies. Michael smiled. Everything looks good? I returned the file. It looks interesting. Damien laughed. Our future has never been brighter. I simply smiled. Olivia entered the conference room carrying coffee. She looked elegant and completely confident. She noticed me. Ethan. Olivia. She smiled proudly. I didn't expect to see you involved in something this important. I'm here for work. So are we. Damien placed an arm around her. When this deal closes, our company will reach another level. Olivia looked at him with admiration. I always knew you were unstoppable. I remained silent. Nathan continued discussing contract terms. No one noticed me taking quiet notes. Every answer Michael gave created another contradiction. After the meeting ended, Victoria walked beside me. You barely spoke. I was listening. What did you hear? Enough. She studied my face. You found something. I think so. Can you prove it? Not yet. She smiled. Then don't rush. That evening Lucas knocked on my office door. I found another discrepancy. He handed me a flash drive. Where did this come from? A public filing. I connected it to my computer. More numbers. More missing transactions. More unanswered questions. Lucas looked at me. Now what? We keep collecting evidence. We could expose them today. And if we're wrong? He stayed silent. I closed the laptop. I won't destroy someone's company without undeniable proof. Lucas nodded slowly. That's why people trust you. Days passed. Meetings continued. Pressure increased. Reporters waited outside every conference. Investors demanded updates. Inside every boardroom, Damien acted like victory already belonged to him. Olivia smiled beside him during every presentation. She looked completely convinced that their future was secure. One afternoon, Nathan placed a thick contract in front of me. "This is the final agreement." I looked down. Only one signature remained. Mine. Nathan smiled. "You've led these negotiations better than anyone expected." I took a slow breath. "So this signature decides everything?" "It does. Every company? Every one." I looked through the glass wall toward the city skyline. Just 2 years earlier, I had stood outside a restaurant holding a cheap engagement ring while my future collapsed. Now billion-dollar companies waited for my decision. Life had changed in ways I never imagined. Victoria stepped beside me. "You've been quiet." I was remembering the past. For a moment, she smiled. "Does it still hurt?" "No." "What does it feel like?" I looked at the unsigned contract. "It feels like justice doesn't always arrive with anger." Nathan nodded. "Sometimes it arrives with patience." I picked up my pen. Across the hallway, I saw Damien laughing confidently. Olivia stood beside him, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Neither of them realized that their future no longer depended on promises, appearances, or confidence. It depended on one signature. My signature. For the first time, I truly understood something. Karma didn't always knock on the front door. Sometimes it walked into a boardroom wearing an expensive business suit and waited quietly for the perfect moment to speak. The acquisition entered its final stage, and every meeting felt heavier than the last. My signature had started carrying real weight, but I reminded myself every morning that responsibility mattered more than power. Lucas walked into my office with a serious expression. "We have a problem." I looked up. "What happened?" "The auditors finished reviewing Reed Technologies." I slowly stood. "And they found something." I took the report from his hands. Several pages were marked in red. "These aren't small mistakes." "They're not mistakes," Lucas replied. "They're fraud." I closed the file. "Has Nathan seen this?" "He has." My phone rang before I could say anything. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. "Ethan, I'm on my way." When I entered the conference room, Nathan, Victoria, and several auditors were already waiting. Nathan pointed toward the documents. "Explain what you found." One auditor adjusted his glasses. "We discovered manipulated financial reports." Another added, "Profits were exaggerated." A third continued, "Large debts were hidden through shell accounts." I remained silent. Nathan looked at me. "You noticed inconsistencies weeks ago." "I suspected something." "Why didn't you accuse them?" "Suspicion isn't proof." Victoria smiled. "And now we have proof." Nathan nodded. "The investors must be informed." Within hours, the news spread across the business world. Stock prices dropped. Investors demanded answers. Reporters surrounded Reed Technologies' headquarters. Panic replaced confidence. Later that afternoon, I saw Damien storm into another meeting. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "These reports are fake." One auditor calmly replied, "The evidence says otherwise." Damien slammed his hand onto the table. "Someone is trying to destroy me." Nobody answered. The silence hurt him more than any argument. As I left the building, I noticed Olivia standing alone near the entrance. Her eyes were red. "Ethan." I stopped. "Are you okay?" She laughed bitterly. "Does it look like I am?" I stayed quiet. She looked down. I confronted Damien. "What happened?" I asked him if the debts were real. And he admitted everything. She wiped away a tear. "He lied to me." I took a slow breath. "I'm sorry." She looked surprised. "You're sorry?" "I don't enjoy seeing anyone hurt." She shook her head. "I left you because I thought he could give me a better life." I didn't answer. "He told me his company was unstoppable." I quietly said, "People can hide the truth for a while, but not forever," she whispered. Before I could respond, Sarah Collins approached us. "Ethan." Sarah. She looked at Olivia. I think you deserve to see something. She handed Olivia several printed messages. Olivia read them silently. Her hands began shaking. What is this? Sarah answered gently. Messages between Damien and his marketing manager. Olivia continued reading. Tears rolled down her face. He actually wrote this? Sarah nodded. He said dating you would improve his public image and attract investors. Olivia covered her mouth. I was never loved. Sarah remained quiet. I looked away. Watching Olivia cry wasn't satisfying. It wasn't the victory I once imagined. It was simply another broken life. She slowly folded the papers. I destroyed everything for a lie. I spoke softly. You still have a chance to rebuild. She looked at me. After everything I did? I can't change the past. Can you forgive me? I thought carefully before answering. I've already let go of my anger. Is that forgiveness? It's peace. She lowered her head. I don't deserve your kindness. I didn't argue. Victoria joined us a few moments later. She waited until Olivia walked away before speaking. How do you feel? I looked toward the city. I expected revenge to feel better. And it doesn't. Victoria smiled. That's because revenge isn't the same as justice. I finally understand. She folded her arms. If you let hatred control you, you'll become another Damien. I nodded slowly. I don't want that. Then don't chase revenge. What should I chase? The truth. I smiled. I think the truth is already doing its job. Nathan walked outside and joined us. The board has terminated every agreement with Damien's company. I simply nodded. Nathan looked into my eyes. You handled this with dignity. I only followed the evidence. And that's why people trust you. As the evening sun disappeared behind the buildings, I realized something unexpected. Watching Damien lose everything didn't heal the wound Olivia had created years ago. It simply proved that betrayal always collects its debt. Sooner or later, everyone pays. I took one final look at the collapsing empire behind me before walking away. This time, I wasn't following anger. I was following the future I had built with my own hands. 3 days after the news of Damien's collapse filled every business channel, my assistant knocked on my office door. Mr. Carter? Come in. She looked uncertain. There's someone asking to see you. Who? She hesitated. Olivia. For a moment I said nothing. Then I took a slow breath. Let her in. A minute later, Olivia stepped inside. She looked completely different from the confident woman who had walked away from me years ago. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She stood quietly near the door. Hi, Ethan. Hello. I won't take much of your time. I nodded. What did you want to say? She looked around my office before meeting my eyes. You've built an incredible life. I've worked hard for it. I know. Silence filled the room. Finally she whispered, I'm sorry. I remained quiet. She wiped away a tear. I've practiced this conversation 100 times. You don't have to force it. I do. She stepped closer. I chose money over loyalty. I looked at her calmly. I know. I thought being ordinary meant being unhappy. She laughed bitterly. I was terrified of struggling. I folded my hands. So you left? Yes. And now I understand what I threw away. She covered her face for a moment. I thought Damien was my future. What changed? I finally saw the truth. She looked directly at me. Losing everything made me realize your value. I stayed silent. You loved me when I had nothing. Yes. And I abandoned you because you had nothing. I nodded once. She cried harder. I hate the person I became. I slowly walked toward the window. Outside, people hurried through the streets without knowing what was happening inside my office. Olivia spoke again. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I turned toward her. What are you asking for? One more chance. The words hung between us. She continued. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed. I closed my eyes for a second. Memories returned. The restaurant, the silver ring, the laughter, the the strangers watching, the humiliation. I opened my eyes again. Do you remember the ring? She lowered her head immediately. I do. You laughed at it. I know. You laughed at me. I'm ashamed. You said love couldn't pay bills. Fresh tears rolled down her face. I was wrong. You introduced Damien while I was still holding that ring. I'm sorry. You broke every promise we made. I know. She reached into her purse and carefully placed something on my desk. It was the old photograph we had taken years before. I kept this. I looked at it quietly. We looked happy. We were. She whispered. Can we ever be that again? I gently pushed the photograph back toward her. No. She stared at me. Not because I hate you. Then why? Because trust doesn't return just because someone regrets leaving. She closed her eyes. I deserve that. I spoke calmly. Success didn't change me. She listened without interrupting. It only revealed who truly believed in me. She began crying again. I should have believed in you. You should have. I failed you. You did. But I don't hate you. She looked surprised. You don't. No. What do you feel? I thought carefully. Gratitude. She frowned. For what? You taught me the hardest lesson of my life. What lesson? Never build my future on someone else's belief. She covered her mouth. I wish I could change the past. So do I. She looked around the office one last time. I imagined this conversation ending differently. So did I. She smiled sadly. I hoped you'd tell me to stay. I shook my head gently. That man disappeared the night you walked away. She slowly picked up the old photograph. I understand. As she reached the door, she stopped. Ethan? Yes. I'm proud of the man you've become. I smiled politely. Thank you. I truly hope you find someone who loves you the way I should have. I hope you find peace too. She nodded. Goodbye. Goodbye, Olivia. She walked out without looking back. The door closed softly. I stood alone in complete silence. I expected to feel pain. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. The weight I had carried since that broken proposal quietly disappeared. I looked at the city through the glass windows and smiled. Some people return to ask for another chance. Others return so you can finally realize you no longer need one. For the first time in years, the past no longer followed me. It stayed behind exactly where it belonged. The morning the acquisition officially closed, I arrived at headquarters earlier than everyone else. I stood in the empty lobby and smiled at the company logo hanging above the reception desk. Years ago, I had walked into a restaurant carrying a simple ring and impossible hope. Today, I walked into a future I had built with patience instead of promises. Lucas entered carrying 2 paper cups. I guessed you'd be here first. You know me too well. He handed me a cup. Cheap coffee. I laughed. After everything we've accomplished, you still bought the cheapest coffee? He grinned. I wanted to remind you where we started. I raised the cup. Then here's to terrible coffee. And impossible dreams. We laughed together. A few minutes later, Nathan and Victoria joined us. Nathan smiled. Congratulations, Ethan. Thank you. The acquisition is officially complete. I took a slow breath. It finally happened. Victoria handed me a report. You should read the first page. I opened it. The merger saved every struggling company? She nodded. And created thousands of new jobs. I looked at her. That's better than any profit. Nathan smiled proudly. I was hoping you'd say that. He placed another folder on the table. There's one more decision. I opened it. It contained a leadership contract. I looked at him. What is this? I'd like you to become a permanent leader of our group. I blinked. You're offering me this? I'm offering it because you've earned it. I looked toward Victoria. She smiled. I voted yes before anyone else. I laughed softly. So I don't have a choice? Nathan chuckled. You always have a choice. I signed the contract. I accept. Nathan shook my hand. Welcome. Victoria smiled. I'm looking forward to building even bigger things together. So am I. As the meeting ended, Lucas stayed behind. He looked around the office. Do you remember our old apartment? The leaking ceiling? The broken chairs? The tiny desk? I laughed. And the coffee that tasted like burned dirt. He raised his cup. It still does. I shook my head. We survived on hope. And stubbornness. I thought everyone believed we were crazy. Lucas smiled. They did. Were they right? A little. We both laughed again. Later that afternoon, reporters gathered outside the building. One journalist asked, Mr. Carter, how does it feel to become one of the youngest business leaders in the industry? I answered honestly, it feels like responsibility. Another reporter asked, what's the secret behind your success? I smiled. Keep your promises longer than your excuses. Cameras flashed. Another voice called out, did revenge motivate you? I paused. No. What did? Becoming someone I could respect. The interview ended. As I returned inside, Sarah Collins walked beside me. Congratulations. Thank you. She handed me a newspaper. Damien's photograph covered the front page. Several lawsuits had been filed against him. I looked at the headline quietly. Sarah sighed. He did this to himself. I know. Do you feel satisfied? I folded the newspaper. I feel grateful that I chose a different path. She smiled. That's probably why you won. That evening, Victoria invited me onto the rooftop terrace. The city lights stretched endlessly below us. She leaned against the railing. You've been thinking. I have. About Olivia? For a moment. She nodded. I saw her today. You did. She stayed across the street while reporters interviewed you. I looked toward the city. Did she say anything? No. What did she do? She watched quietly. I remained silent. Victoria smiled gently. Some people don't need words to understand what they've lost. I nodded. Maybe. She looked at me. Do you regret anything? I thought carefully. I regret the pain. But I don't regret the lessons. She smiled. I expected that answer. As the evening grew quieter, Lucas joined us carrying another cup of cheap coffee. I brought one for tradition. Victoria laughed. I've never seen successful executives celebrate with terrible coffee. Lucas shrugged. We're sentimental. I accepted the cup. I wouldn't change it. Nathan stepped onto the terrace. The board wants to celebrate downstairs. I'll be there soon. He nodded and returned inside. Lucas looked at me. So, you finally won. I smiled. Did I? He frowned. What do you mean? I never defeated Olivia. No. I never defeated Damien. No. They defeated themselves. Lucas nodded slowly. I guess you're right. I looked at the lights covering the city. My biggest victory wasn't becoming rich. What was it? Becoming someone my younger self would be proud to become. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The silence felt peaceful. I remembered the young man holding a simple silver ring with shaking hands. I wished I could tell him something. I would tell him not to beg, not to quit, not to let one betrayal define his future. Most importantly, I would tell him that real success isn't measured by money, titles, or applause. It's measured by the person you become while chasing your dreams. I smiled, raised my paper cup one last time, and quietly whispered to the man I used to be. We made it. Months passed before I returned to the little park where I had once planned to ask Olivia to marry me. The trees looked taller, the benches looked older, and the memories felt quieter than before. I slipped my hand into my pocket and touched the small silver ring that had traveled with me through every success and every failure. I smiled to myself. So this is where everything changed. I walked slowly toward the river. For a long moment, I simply stood there. I opened the small ring box. The silver ring reflected the afternoon sunlight. I remembered my younger self holding it with hope. I remembered Olivia laughing. I remembered believing my future had ended that night. I shook my head gently. No, my future started that night. I held the ring between my fingers. You taught me more than you ever realized. I looked across the water. I don't need you anymore. With one calm movement, I threw the ring into the river. It disappeared beneath the surface without a sound. I watched the circles spread across the water until they slowly vanished. For the first time in years, my pocket felt lighter. More importantly, so did my heart. A familiar voice spoke behind me. I was wondering if you'd actually do it. I turned around. Victoria smiled. You came. I promised. Emma walked beside her carrying a small gift bag. And we brought someone else. Lucas raised 2 paper coffee cups. I refused to celebrate without terrible coffee. I laughed. Some traditions should never die. Grace hugged me tightly. I knew you'd be here. You always know. She smiled. That's my job as your sister. We sat together on a nearby bench. Emma looked at me. So, how do you feel? I thought for a moment. Peaceful. Victoria nodded. I can see that. Lucas handed me a cup. Still tastes terrible. I took a sip. It really does. Everyone laughed. Grace looked toward the river. Was that the ring? Yes. Any regrets? None. Victoria smiled proudly. Then today isn't about losing something. What is it about? It's about finally letting yourself move forward. Emma opened the gift bag. Speaking of moving forward, she handed me a framed photograph. It showed our entire company standing together after completing our biggest project. I smiled. When did you take this? Lucas answered. The day we reached our biggest milestone. Grace pointed at the picture. Look at your face. I laughed. I actually look happy. Victoria crossed her arms. You are. And not because of money. No. And not because of success. She smiled. Exactly. I looked at every face in the photograph. People who believed in me. People who stayed. People who never asked me to become someone else. Nathan had trusted me. Victoria had challenged me. Lucas had refused to let me quit. Grace had reminded me who I was. Emma had helped our company grow stronger every month. None of them cared about the size of my bank account when they chose to stand beside me. Lucas broke the silence. Remember our first office? The broken chairs? The leaking ceiling? The tiny desk? And the cheap coffee? We all laughed again. Emma looked at me. If someone had told you back then that thousands of people would one day work for your company, would you have believed them? I smiled. Not for a second. Victoria gently placed a hand on my shoulder. But you kept believing in yourself. I looked at her. Not always. You kept trying anyway. She was right. There were nights when I wanted to quit. There were mornings when rejection felt unbearable. There were moments when I wondered if Olivia had been right about me. But every difficult day had taught me another lesson. Every failure had made me stronger. Every betrayal had forced me to become wiser. Grace looked at me. If you could speak to the man who stood here years ago with that ring, what would you tell him? I smiled softly. I'd tell him not to be afraid. Lucas nodded. What else? I'd tell him that losing the wrong person makes room for the right future. Emma smiled. I like that. Victoria looked toward the river. And what was your greatest investment? I answered without hesitation. Myself. She smiled proudly. I was hoping you'd say that. I looked at the calm water one last time. Olivia had disappeared from my life carrying the consequences of her own choices. I honestly hoped she would someday find peace. As for me, I no longer carried anger. I carried experience. I carried gratitude. I carried confidence that no one could take away. Together we walked back toward the city, laughing about old memories and making plans for the future. As I looked at the people beside me, I finally understood the truth that had taken years to learn. Real revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. Real revenge is becoming so strong, so honest, and so complete that their betrayal no longer has the power to define your life. With a smile on my face and the people who truly mattered walking beside me, I stepped forward without looking back, knowing my greatest success had never been building a business empire. My greatest success had been rebuilding myself.